So joining us from Donegal is president of the chamber and a good friend and colleague of many of us, David Green. I'll hand over to David for his welcome.
Thanks very much, Barry, and it's good to be with you all. I suppose the first thing that strikes me is that for a Women in Leadership event, we're starting proceedings with two blokes talking, so we're probably going to need to sort that one, Barry, in the future. But look, it's really good to be with you both. As Barry mentioned, I'm back in Donegal at the minute, but Brisbane is where I'm based. And I want to say good evening to those in Australia and good morning to those of us in Ireland. And welcome everyone to the closing event for the 2020-2021 Emerald Leadership Programme in Australia. And I'm really honoured to be invited to join you for this event and to celebrate it with you. It's, as Barry mentioned, it's a sort of a graduation day for our 4 groups based in Australia. And I want to congratulate each and every one of you who've participated for your commitment to the Chamber and to the programme over the past year, because no doubt throughout that year you faced challenges, both personal and professional, and of course in the context of dealing with the ongoing pandemic situation, and you know, many of you are currently in lockdown. So your, I suppose, tenacity and commitment in keeping faith with the Chamber and with the programme is really appreciated, certainly by me and by the whole team. Our 4 groups were made up of participants from coast to coast in Australia. So New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria, and of course WA. We had participants from all of those states. And this was the first time that we had 4 groups running concurrently. And it was also our first step or the first time that we've delivered the programme virtually. We were very excited to stand up a 5th group later in the year in Ireland, which in total this year gave us over 40 participants in the Emerald programme. And could I just give a shout out to those people based in Ireland who are joining us as guests for this event. I mean, I think personally one of the great benefits of you know, the programme moving to a virtual environment is that we're no longer constrained by our geographic location. You know, we're not just, you know, Kaylee will, you know, to talk about how, you know, it was very hard to get a group together in Brisbane for an in-person Brisbane event. But of course, moving to a virtual environment, we all of a sudden not only have the benefit of bringing all of you together, but you get to collaborate with people that you wouldn't necessarily meet in a local cafe or in a local business or whatever the case may be. I'm indebted, you know, personally and on behalf of the Chamber to Mairead Dunn, and I want to give her a big shout out for the work that she's done in helping us to reimagine what might be possible with the Emerald programme. And I want to thank you, Mairead, for the work that you've done, and of course acknowledge the work that Lisa and Catherine at the Chamber always put in behind the scenes, and no more so for the Emerald programme, to make sure that, I guess, the experience that each and every one of you get to experience throughout the year is the best that it possibly can be. Can I acknowledge our chairs: Chris Mallochny, Stephanie Lyons, Kaylee Gartland, Clara McCormack, Rachel O'Toole, Aisling Smith, Anne Fogarty, and of course Terry Fleming in Ireland. You know, this Chamber is built on the back of voluntary effort, and without the voluntary contribution and dedication of those people, particularly our chairs in the Emerald programme, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So I just want to give a big thank you to those, and you know, your contribution, and you know, all of the work that you've done throughout the year, whether it's organising speakers and setting aside time and giving your insights and the benefit of your experience to participants, and all of that is you know, very, very deeply appreciated. Now, of course, you know, not only is our programs like Emerald not possible without the people who volunteer their time, they're also not possible without sponsorship. And in particular, I'd like to recognise our sponsors for this program, which are Hum Group, Spritz Mindset, Powell Business Leadership, and of course the Irish Government. So thank you to our sponsors for believing in us as a chamber, and supporting us in what we wanted to do. I have to say that out of everything we do in the chamber, whether it's the business awards, whether it's the networking events, whether it's our St. Pat's events, whatever we do, the Emerald program is the thing of which I am most proud. It's not just because of the value that the program brings to you individually, whether it's the value of connecting with other people across the globe, whether it's the ability to have a supportive network throughout your career or even during lockdown, and the tangible positive outcomes that you get from participation. But for me, the thing about Emerald that I am most proud is the legacy that it will leave. We know full well that as a chamber, an organisation of our size, we can't alone tackle systemic sexism. We alone can't tackle inequality, whether that's pay inequality or otherwise. But with Emerald, we provide a space for women to develop the tools for them to tackle those problems at the root, whether it's in their workplace or in their industry or wherever the case may be. And I have no doubt that most of you participating in this program will scale the heights of your career, whether it's C-suite or partnership or whatever the case may be, or indeed in your own business. And I have no doubt that when you reach that level, you will also reach down and lift up the women who are coming behind us. For us in the chamber, nothing is transactional. It's about relationships, not only relationships now, but in the future. And the legacy of Emerald will be something I think that we can all be proud of. As participants, your journey in Emerald began with a goal-setting event. I hope that you achieved those goals, you found new opportunities, you developed as a leader and expanded your chamber network. I hope that this is not the end of your journey with the chamber, or indeed the end of your Emerald story, and that you'll take part, in the future, whether you volunteer as a chair, whether you want to contribute in some other way. I've often said to people, the chamber is a vehicle through which you can make, your idea or bring your thing to the table, because we're always open to new ideas, and we're always open to allowing people the space and the time to give back in the way that they possibly can. With that, I think I've said enough for one day, and as I said at the outset, it's about women in leadership. It's not about listening to blokes talk. So it's my great pleasure to introduce our main speaker, a person who I had the great pleasure of having as my guest at our St. Patrick's Day lunch in Melbourne, and whose company I thoroughly enjoyed on that day. She's a very proud Irish Australian, a very impressive person who has indeed scaled the heights of her own career. Could I introduce with great pleasure the Minister for Women, Minister for the Prevention of Family Violence, and Minister for Aboriginal Affairs in the Andrews Victorian Government, the Honourable Gabrielle Williams MP.
Thank you. Thanks, David, for those very warm words and such, I think, a lovely expression of why the Emerald program is so important, but I suppose about the values that underpin it, which for me is what is so appealing, not only to this gathering of people, but to the program that we're ultimately here to celebrate and those who have participated in it. Before I begin, though, for our Australian-based audience, can I please acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're all gathered, noting, of course, in this virtual world, we are all gathered on different country. I'm currently on Bunurong country in the southeast of Melbourne. Pay my respects to elders past and present, and any other elders who may be here with us today. An enormous thank you to the Chamber for inviting me to be here, to David, to Barry, to all of our amazing women that David acknowledged who have auspiced this program and sponsored it too, the businesses that have lent their weight to it, and the volunteers who have poured themselves into it. You are all absolutely incredible. I can also see on the screen I have a parliamentary colleague who's snuck online, and John Kennedy, the member for Hawthorn, who is another great Irish Australian man and champion of the Irish community here, the diaspora, and we are frequently given opportunity to display our roots with great pride in the Parliament of Victoria, and hopefully our numbers are growing. I think they gradually are. I think it's getting a little bit the vocal green is heightening in the Victorian Parliament, I think it's fair to say. I've also started with this week on a high, and I'm wondering how many people from Tyrone we have here, because I'm a staunch Tyrone Gaelic football supporter, and I tell you, there is nothing I love more than seeing Kerry beaten. So sorry to anyone here from Kerry, but I had to get that in. Very much happy day. Someone's written nice one. Very much looking forward to taking on Mayo, but that's just to start on a positive note, because invariably we're going to end up discussing the impacts of COVID, because you can't talk about the challenges faced by women without talking about the context that we're in. So I don't want to keep it all too dreary, but I did want to reflect on the time that we're in, and it very much is the time, it spans the period of time that you've all been participating in this program, and the most difficult of circumstances. And what we've seen with a particular gendered focus is this period of time having a disproportionate impact on women in our community. And it's had a disproportionate impact on women because of the existing inequalities that already were there as a starting point. So women were on the front line of the COVID-19 pandemic. They were 80% of the health and social services workforce here in Australia. We've shouldered even more of the burden of unpaid care. We're already disproportionately carrying the burden of that care, but it's actually got worse during this period of time. And women have been hardest hit by the economic impacts of the pandemic because we've been more likely to work in sectors where jobs have been lost. And it's really no shock that in any crisis, those who experience disadvantage as a starting point end up disproportionately worse off. And that's exactly what we've seen happen throughout the pandemic. We were behind from the outset. We're more likely to be in low-paid, insecure work for a start. So therefore more likely to profoundly feel economic shocks. On the flip side of that, women are also more likely on average to have higher postgraduate qualifications than their male counterparts. Yet we also know that we're more likely to miss out on senior leadership and decision-making roles in virtually all spheres of life, whether that be business, government, or indeed in the community. But fortunately, that is something that I think COVID has brought into view in a far more stark way. It's been a conversation for decades, and we know there's people in our communities who have dedicated their lives to trying to shift the dial on these issues. And what we've seen, certainly in Australia, and I imagine globally, is some of the discussions around this inequality really start to rise to the surface as COVID has exacerbated and magnified some of those inequalities. And here in Victoria, gender equality and particularly around elevating women's voices and women's position has been a part of our agenda, thankfully, long before COVID hit. But I think it's fair to say it has been put on steroids, that effort, over the last 18 months or so. And haven't just been interested, and I think it's important from a government perspective and for any decision maker to think this way, but it's not just about the symbolic acts. It's got to be around the structural reform. What can we fundamentally do differently that continues to pave the way for change long into the future? And that's what we've really been interested in. And also not talking about gender equality with a deficit approach, but actually also talking about the opportunities that come from it. The fact that we know that our economy benefits massively from gender equality, as well as our community through better decision making. We know that when you have greater diversity of voices at the decision making table, that we make better decisions. It really is that simple. And in a microcosm of that reality, the Victorian Parliament really is an example. Whether we currently in the Victorian government, so just government benches, have 48% women. We've also achieved the first gender equal cabinet in the state's history. In fact, at the moment, we've got a majority female cabinet. 12 out of the 22 ministers are female. And it's not just symbolic. It's not just the numbers. It's actually what we can do with it. And when I look back at what we've been able to do over the last 7 years, having more women at the key decision-making table, what I've seen is that it's made us as a decision-making entity braver. We've seen women at that table drag out issues from under the rug that have dogged us for generations, dust them off and deal with them. Whether they are controversial, whether they are challenging, not everyone will agree necessarily with the approach. It's pushed us to be very progressive too, I think. but you have seen some of the most challenging of issues dealt with over the last 7 years. And that's no coincidence, because of almost all of those large-scale, deep and complex reforms, it's been female ministers spearheading them. And I think that can show us what we can do, not only in governments, but in anywhere out there in the community, and demonstrates to us the tangible outcomes of actually having women's voices elevated, of actually ensuring that we are present in leadership. And I suppose, to go to David's point too, the pledge that we all have to quietly make to ourselves once we're there, to make sure that we're pulling up those who come behind us. Because if we don't, we can't guarantee that others will. So only by paving the way for others can we guarantee that the change that we've made can be sustained. But it's not, in terms of structural reform, we've also had to be kind of clever and think about what else we can do to make sure that we're embedding in our systems a more equal decision-making forum generally, or a decision-making environment, not just for now, but well into the future. And one of the ways that we've done this in more recent times, which got a fair bit of attention in kind of feminist circles, probably not a lot of mainstream attention because it's not a particularly sexy thing to talk about in the front page of the newspaper, but it was a creation of what we call a gender-responsive budgeting unit within Treasury. Now, the reason this is so important is because it acknowledges from the outset that the what informs our budgetary thinking is often very gendered as a starting point. Economics as a discipline is very, very gendered as a starting point, and not in the direction of women, you won't be shocked to learn. And so acknowledging that and saying, well, we actually need to ensure that the decisions that we make in the heart of Treasury and the money that we spend is not inadvertently, disproportionately having a negative impact on women or neglecting them in some senses as well. So it ensures that every decision we make and every dollar we spend has that lens put over it. And we've seen other jurisdictions do this in ways that have had profound impacts and that aren't always immediately obvious. And the example I love to use, and I can't remember if I used this last year, but it was around a municipality in Sweden who decided to take this approach when looking at some of their policies, to run a gender lens over it and see whether things were having a disproportionate impact one way or the other. And so they decided to start by looking at their snow ploughing program. And it doesn't necessarily jump out at you as the most gendered part of government policy. But what they found when they looked at how they ran their snow ploughing program was that they prioritised main thoroughfares, main roads. And on its face, that's very logical. But what they also did, knowing that that was how they ran their program, they looked at, for example, the entrance into the emergency department of local hospitals in their municipality. They looked at the data around who was coming into EDs with injuries and what the nature of those injuries were. And what they found was there was a spike of people coming in with broken bones and similar types of injuries, disproportionately women, and disproportionately caused by slipping on ice. So then what they worked out is who uses the road, how do people use the road network? And they found that men disproportionately use main thoroughfares because they're generally going from their home to work and it's a direct route and it takes main roads. Women, however, are more likely to have a lot of other incidental stops. They're dropping kids off at school, they're going to the shops, they're picking up things, and then they're using, more likely to be using back streets. And as a consequence, they're more likely to be using the roads that haven't been cleared. They're more likely to be in accidents. As a consequence, they're more likely to present in the emergency department of hospitals, and therefore the cost to the health system of not ploughing back streets is profound. So what did they do? They didn't change, they didn't have to spend anymore. They just changed their prioritisation, and it brought down the cost to the health system because it brought down the numbers of women having to enter the emergency department with injuries as a consequence of accidents related to snow being on the roads. And so we know that it's not always immediately obvious, but that a lot of the decisions we make are based on assumptions that are actually highly gendered. And that we've got to start challenging that if we're going to start changing the outcomes and changing the fortunes of just over half of our population. So it's, there's a lot to be gained from doing this. And and I do like to look at it in those terms of what we gain. So to bring that back to what we're celebrating here today, I think any effort that is poured into lifting up those who are coming through with us or coming through behind us has to be seen as a part of that overall story of how we are in all parts of our community, elevating the voices and experiences of women so that the decisions we're making are better, so that we are better serving our community, and increasing our fortunes collectively along the way, which we know is the case. So it's so wonderful to see a group of people who have taken this on in the most difficult of circumstances. It's lovely to see representatives here from Ireland as well, and that connection between Ireland and Australia being lived through this program. I think that makes it genuinely really special. And it's been a real privilege for me to be able to be a part of this last year and then again revisit this year to sort of get that sense of the journey that's been embarked upon, and to see the faces of those who I know in your respective industries, businesses and communities will be going on to increase that pool of women who are coming up through the ranks, so that we can ensure not only in our generation but in the next generation that we have plenty of hopefully very outspoken, smart, vocal women to be able to make sure that we are building a future that doesn't have the same level of inequity that has characterised the past and the present. So that in another 100 years, if we are dealing with yet another pandemic or some type of economic shock, there's not someone like me still sitting here saying, well, this is disproportionately going to be impacting upon women because, you know what, as a starting point, we've been disadvantaged. That conversation has to end. And I think programs like this and gatherings of brilliant women like this are what's going to make sure that that narrative shifts. So thank you very much for allowing me to celebrate with you today.
Thanks very much, Gav. That was awesome as always. It's really hard having to come on after you because you've got just the best stories and anecdotes to wheel out as well. If anyone has any questions, I think we've got a couple of minutes before Gabrielle has to leave us, so just drop them into the chat and we'll ask them. But there was something that I wanted to put to you that had come up in one of the other sessions through the program this year. There was quite a discussion around the case for recognition and advancement of women in the workplace, and particularly in a competitive workplace. Now, I don't know many more competitive workplaces than politics, so you must have learned a few tricks over the years. What are the strategies that we can share with our colleagues to enable them to put their case forward, to be the person who's promoted to advance? Yeah,
it's a good one because if you look at some of the research on this, and it's something many of us in this conversation are probably familiar with, but there's some patterns in behaviour that women and men respectively demonstrate. And they know, for example, that if you put out a job application and it's got 10 KPIs, if men can fulfil one of them, they'll apply. If women can fulfil 9 of them, but they can't do the 10th, then they'll be reluctant to. So there is automatically a starting point of confidence issue then there. It's the same as men are more likely to ask for a pay rise, whether they deserve one or not. Women will wait to be offered one disproportionately rather than to proactively ask. And these are patterns in behaviour across sectors and workplaces that we know to be true, which over time, I think, contributed to us being somewhat left behind. So the advice I always give people is put your hand up and think about the consequences later. If there's an opportunity to do something in a workplace setting or to take on that bit of extra responsibility, volunteer, because that's what's going to give you the opportunity not only to grow, but to also demonstrate what you can do. Don't wait for someone to tap you on the shoulder and ask you to, or to recognise your talents and ask you to take that next step. I think we've got to be more proactive and just doing what men do and putting our hands up with confidence and saying we can do it. Fake it till you make it. Even if you don't feel confident, put your hand up. You'll learn along the way anyway. I think we've got to sort of be more mindful of that in terms of trying to drive better outcomes in terms of recognition and promotion. But the other part of it is we shouldn't put all the responsibility on our own shoulders, because the reality is we've been kept behind by systems of very entrenched patriarchy effectively. So we need to bring the management of these settings along with us too. And I think there's a bit of an education piece, I think, in there as well, particularly in corporate settings, around the benefits of actually having more diverse leadership. And I think gradually, particularly in the corporate sector, it's being better understood that it actually can have a very positive effect on profit margins. I know there's lots of sort of information going around about, sort of top 50 or top 500 companies, and those with a more gender equal boards doing performing better than others. And so there is this gradual recognition that, hang on a minute, there might actually be benefits to this. But there's a lot of different, there's things that we can be doing as women, and then there's sort of changes that need to be made to the systems to better to create a better sense of understanding about why this is actually significant and important.
Thank you for that. We're going to squeeze in a question from Alwyn, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So for the first time in history, there are now no all-male boards on the ASX 200. How does the gender representation of state governments fare by comparison? Oh,
yeah, so
Alwyn.
Yeah, at the moment in this state government, very well. Almost half of government benches are women. That's in no small part, though, because as a political party, we're a Labor government, and the Labor Party has a quota system for our pre-selections. So, we have to have 50-50 pre-selections, and now it's done. So 50% of winnable seats within a certain margin have to be women, because before that time, what you'd see was all the women were being pre-selected for all the seats that couldn't be won. So we shifted that. And so now what we've seen as a consequence of some of these changes is an elected base that is far more representative of our community. So we've done well there, and over 50% of our cabinet room being women. But more than that, we've also on government made a commitment that 50% of appointments to government boards would also be women, and we've exceeded that. I think at the moment it's sitting around 53% when I last checked. It might jump around a little bit of government boards being women as well. And we're looking to expand that all the time. We've expanded it into chairs as well to make sure 50% of chairs of those boards are also women. And I think it's been a really important process for us to go through, because it's also got us thinking about pipelines. So how do we also create pools of women to draw from for these roles as well, and create those opportunities, which we're doing through a range of government women's leadership programs as well. And I'd like to see us doing more partnership with the corporate sector on that too, to be able to, again, expand that pool of expertise and make sure that we're creating more opportunities on government boards for more women and a diverse range of women.
Hopefully there's an opportunity for some of our Emerald graduates to get on those boards as well over time.
Absolutely. And on that, sorry, Barry, people should always get on board the website and have a look at what opportunities there are, because we are always looking, it's not, the system's not working if you've got the same woman on 10 boards, that's, we need more women, we need a diversity of experience, and I think it's absolutely integral to the success of the commitment that we've made.
Will you indulge us with one last question?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Sheryl Sandberg suggests we should lean in as women and take on more leadership. Michelle Obama suggests this movement has resulted in women taking on too much, trying to do it all, resulting in the woman being the one at loss. Any thoughts on that?
In terms of the need, what was the tail end of Michelle's quote?
Women taking on too much, trying to do it all. So leadership, raising a family, everything in between, resulting in the woman being the one at loss.
Yeah, and I think the idea of leaning in is important. It's effectively what I was getting at when I said put your hand up, and think that, like, we need to be more proactive in making the case for our own advancement. Definitely. I think that the point around us having to take more on is absolutely right, and we've seen that through the pandemic too. The fact that one positive is that thankfully a whole bunch of roles that women overwhelmingly fulfil we're now referring to as essential, which we've never referred them to them in that way before, so that's great. But we know that, as I outlined before, that women are taking on more care responsibilities at home, more likely to take on the economic shock of the moment as well, and a range of other factors that, if you take it out of a COVID context even, lead to a situation where women are increasingly being asked to take on more, but the system itself hasn't adapted. And I think to make that easier as well. And I think that sort of pivots me towards the importance of that systemic change, that systemic reform, whether that be in, for example, a topic that is very sort of front of mind here at the moment, particularly as we head into a National Women's Summit with the federal government, but around the importance of childcare and actually expanding the accessibility of childcare. It is incredibly expensive. I'm seeing some nodding heads of anyone with young children, and cripplingly expensive often. And what that is usually meaning is that women are often making a choice then. Is it worth me going back to work? Because actually I'm spending over 3/4 of my wage just paying for the kids to be cared for by someone else. And that's not a calculation people should be having to make, because when you look at the superannuation poverty of women here, the fact that women over 60 are the highest growing cohort of homeless people in our country at the moment, which is linked to that retirement poverty, we need to be making the system work better for women to be able to be more engaged in employment, and to be able to invest the time that they need to pursue those leadership opportunities, so that they have that security. So I don't think it's wrong to expect the system to support us in that endeavour, because we often joke in politics, the female politicians, that we look at our male colleagues, for example, right, and then we look at each other and we say, God, I need a wife. That's what I need, because I'm looking at what he's doing, and how good would it be having a wife? And we all joke about it, but they've essentially been subsidised to be able to pursue, lofty heights for a long time. They've been subsidised by us. So I don't think it's too wrong now to be able to say, well, the system needs to work out how it can get a more equal, create an environment of more equal participation. And the best part of that, for me too, is that also benefits men. Because disproportionately that's also about creating opportunities for men to be able to avail themselves of arrangements that allow them to be, for example, home and spend with their children more. So I think it's about expecting that systemic shift that supports a more equal involvement, and we're getting there. It's not happening organically, and anyone that tells you that it will happen organically is lying, because it hasn't. It only happens when we start to push the barrow out and demanding more effectively. So I think that systemic change piece is really important. And the more women we have in leadership, the easier it is, or the louder the case for that systemic change becomes.
What a strong finish. Goodness me. I've just realised, in a complete aside, like Channel 4 here, I've got a John Kennedy pen that I've been writing notes with, which was completely unplanned, but good on you, John, for giving me that pen at Parliament the other day.
Yeah, he's got one in the post for all of you.
It's the best one around. Gabrielle, thank you so much for coming on. I absolutely hope that you get your wish about a Tyrone win in the final against Mayo. Sorry to all the Mayo people, but I think you're going to have to wait another year. We look forward to having you back, hopefully in person at something in the not too distant future. But before we hand over to Mairead, just on behalf of the Chamber, thank you so much for being part of our network. We really appreciate it. And I know you've got other commitments. You're welcome to stick around, but we know that you may have to drop off. We'll see you again soon. All the best.
Thank you. The pleasure's all mine. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, Maria Dunn got a big shout out earlier on, and deservedly so, because she pushed our thinking and made us understand what could be possible by having you guys together. And Emerald's been Maria's show, really. I've done a little bit of running around in the background. Lisa and Catherine have driven things from our side, but Maria's been that sort of hub for the program this year. So it's great to be able to have this closure and bring Maria through to lead the discussion tonight. So I'm going to take a back seat and welcome Maria. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. That was very kind. Céad Míle Fáilte Macara. I practiced it. That's how much I haven't spoken Irish for a very long time. But I thought it so fitting to just remember that we're coming together as a group of friends at this other end of this amazing Emerald program. So I'm just still sitting in awe listening to Gabby. I just think when you hear her speak, it's fabulous. And it made me think about, just the complexity of being a woman in this world and how powerful support can be and talking about things can be, which I feel is the undertone of what we've been doing for the last year together. So I'm just going to give you guys an overview of what's going to happen for the next 50 minutes or so. So I'm going to give you guys a bit of a tiny little summary of some of the things about Emerald that I've really enjoyed. And then we're going to go through each group, highlighting the acknowledgements, achievements, just the tone, knowing that it's support for each group, and just to get you guys involved and to really acknowledge each one of you as individuals here showing up for every mastermind and every collective event that we've had, to really acknowledge this success that we've had of the Emerald program. I think it's not fair to also mention that it's been a tough year and this support has been really important, but it's also probably been at times very challenging for us to stay optimistic and hopeful. So it's okay too if some people are going through a tough time. I know there is some people having a very tough personal challenges at the moment. So I just want to acknowledge that, we're absolutely here for support of business, professional, but also I think more importantly through life over the last year together. So when we kind of go to those group acknowledgements, then we'll open up for a bit of a Q&A and discussion. So the chairs will all come together and we're going to open the floor to discuss what does it look like to support each other, what can we do to do more of that. Also inform you guys about how to get involved. This is my second year involved with the Emerald program, and it has been for a lot of the chairs. So some of you might be feeling like you want to do it again. You might want to get involved in a chair as a chair. So just talking about the opportunities with that and how you can get involved. So to kick it off, I just wanted to kind of recap, and it was great because Dave went through the beautiful array of what we've been able to do. But there's been, I suppose for me, something that was really important this year was to bring some experts in on certain topics and just to remember back to the events that we've had over the year and the things that we spoke about and the involvement of the people that were here in this group. I think I wrote a few of them down. The Women in Leadership event that we did at the start, which Gabby was a part of, which was a real success. Moving on to the Finances Romance, where we really looked at financial literacy and how can we up-level and make smart financial decisions so that we can be equipped. And I thought Gabrielle touched on it really well tonight about the importance of things like our retirement funds and super and things like that, which I really enjoyed. And I remember Steph really clearly from that event, so well done, Steph. I think as well, really looking at the agility and well-being while leading in 2021, I think when I looked through the feedback from the year that's been, there's such an undertone of support, of helping each other to feel as well as we can during this time. So that event as well, I think went really well. And then the brand you leadership was really looking at our own personal brand. How are we showing up? How are we represented out there? And is that a true representation of who we really are and who we want to be as leaders in the future? So for me, I feel like we've done really well. And for anyone who's listening in, who's curious about joining the next Emerald program, it's really to know that there's quite a broad scope of things that will be covered from a theme point of view over your 12 months as part of this amazing program. I have to say, going through the email of people, we all got our groups to send through the wins. Like, I was really moved to tears, because you don't actually realize the impact that this is having until someone sits down and actually goes, okay, hold on, over the last 12 months, this is actually what's happened. And the amount of wins and the amount of things that have happened from a support point of view, but also from like a real hard achievement point of view. People have done so well. So just to touch on a few of the stats that we've brought, Lisa, that we've put together. So we've talked about, there was 4 leadership groups. That's what we had in Ireland. And Terry is here. Sorry, Terry, I haven't, we will talk about Terry too. Terry is leading the Irish-based Emerald program. So we'll touch on that as well tonight. So we've had 8 chairs and co-chairs over the last 12 months here in Australia. We've had 33 program participants. We've had 48 mastermind meetings, 42 goals achieved. And there's quite a cohort of people that are involved in this program. I think probably not everybody is acknowledged here, but there is quite a lot of people in senior management and promotions that have been achieved over this time. People have set up businesses, people have progressed, and we've seen this real sense of I suppose, yeah, women being given an opportunity in maybe previous times haven't had such a strong chance in similar situations. We've also had a bit of fun, and I have to acknowledge the wonderful St. Patrick's Day event that we had in Melbourne, with a chance to meet some of you in person. Now, obviously, it was funny, Barry, like when I was thinking about tonight, I was thinking back to like last year. So this conversation started in April of last year when I came back from India. And I was like, we can just do this thing online, it's fine, come on. And but I was like, but it'll only be for a while, and then we'll have a chance to do all these wonderful events, and everyone will be catching up, and we'll be all, having drinks, and here we are. So isn't it great that we gave it a go? I'm so glad we didn't wait to try to get back into real life. But there's been some significant real achievements. We've had someone who's led a camogie team to win a championship, to win a league. We've had premises of businesses bought. You're going to hear more about this in a second, but it was just, as I was going through it, I'm thinking, wow, there's so much power in what we have achieved and what we've been able to do together over this time. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to hand you over to Katie, who is the speaker, chair, co-chair, I'm not sure, one of the above, of Group A Emerald Programme. So I'll hand it over to you, Katie.
Thank you, Maria. Lisa, have you got the slide with everyone on it? So I suppose to echo what Maria had said, the first thing, I've written some notes down on a piece of paper here, and I've read a lot about support. So if I keep repeating support, it's been a hard year and we all needed a lot of support. So in our group, we have fantastic ladies from Brisbane, Perth and Melbourne. So I'm sorry, I see that some of you are here. I'm not sure everyone's here. So if you can wave, we've got Siobhan Ryan, Yvonne O'Byrne, Louise Lysart, Kathy McGarvey, Annette O'Donnell, Zee O'Neill, and Bernie O'Connor. And Bernie can't join us. She's actually in Ireland at the moment, sunning herself. So, and then we also have Anne, who's a fantastic co-chair. So, Anne, who's also in Melbourne. So, I suppose I asked the ladies for some wins just that we could talk about, and general feelings from the group. So like what we've said is, we've really formed a fantastic network of, driven business owners and professionals in our group. We found it a really safe place to, share your ambitions and goals with no judgment. And I think all the ladies have really offered honest advice and peer-to-peer mentoring. We've built fantastic relationships virtually, and I think David spoke about it at the start. I actually moved from Brisbane to Melbourne this year, and I know everyone's like, why? And in Brisbane, it was really hard to get a larger group of people together. So virtually, I can speak, I don't know if everyone's here, but I can speak for everyone and say, it's been fantastic to connect with people, all over Australia, and like-minded ladies. We've had a lot of wins, some big ones and some little ones, but it's been great to come back each month and share as a group. You know, through all transitions, you know, we've been able to offer each other reassurance. You know, we've had people head back to Ireland, we've had people starting new jobs, you know, I moved to a new city. And also just a key takeaway, I suppose I want to say is we have some business owners in our group, namely Annette and Zee, who both have hospitality businesses in Melbourne. And I think really, given the year that it's been, not to mention the C word, but the resilience that those ladies have shown to the rest of us really has inspired us. And hopefully the group has been a great support to them. So I think also on a personal level, I think this year with the pandemic, you know, we've seen a lot more, I suppose, human side of people professionally, but this group has really offered us a personal support as well. So at times like this, you know, a lot of people have stuff going on in Ireland and Australia with family, and it's just been a fantastic support for everyone. So I hope I've did my group good with my summary.
Well done, Kaylee. That was absolutely great. And yes, I definitely chuckled whenever you said, why have you moved from Brisbane to Melbourne? I mean, you couldn't foresee what was to come. So,
I wouldn't have done it without Emerald, though.
there you go.
That's the truth. Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't have done it. Yeah.
Well done. That's amazing. That's what this group is powerful. So powerful. Thank you for sharing, Katie. You did your group proud. I'll hand it over now to group B, which is going to be led by Aisling.
Hello, everyone. It's lovely to be here with you all tonight. I'm very, very proud to have been the chair of the Emerald Group B. I'm very grateful to my co-chair, Rachel, who kept us on time and kept us to point. And she was amazing for keeping a note of all of our goals and keeping like a spreadsheet. So we were able to refer back to it on our final day and, you know, be like, wow, look how far we've come. Look what we've achieved. It was a real revelation. So Rachel, we were all very, very grateful for that. Also, who joined us in the group, we had Alwyn Connolly from Sydney, Nicola Page from Sydney. We had Rachel Dugan, Rachel Sargent. We had all the Rachels in our group, Anne Kavanagh and Kate Masterson. So what you'll see by the diversity of all of our businesses and all of the industries that we work in, we brought a lot of different skill sets to the table. And I think that really, really went to help us with our strength and our unity, because the feedback that came back from everybody about the experience that we've had throughout the year was that it was refreshing to have objective support and advice when dealing with goals, that we rarely get the benefit of a completely different point of view, and getting it in a safe and supportive environment made it even more valuable. People reflected, saying that they just loved having the monthly meeting to go to and getting different people's perspectives, opinions on issues from outside of your industry, so that it's not necessarily looking to your peers or looking to mentors within the same industry, that it's completely refreshing and different points of view. Honest discussion, and people whose main objective was just to support you in your growth and to help you to become a better version of yourself, as opposed to having a vested interest in what it was. The commitment from everybody and turning up every week and continue, or every month, and continuing to show up and just support each other, even in between calls with questions that were put into the messaging group, and just to help each other in different things. I think the general consensus was that we would have loved to have been able to see each other, but I know that will be a consensus across the whole groups, that we would have loved to have been able to see each other. And we did manage one breakfast. Not everybody was able to attend, but when the opportunity arose, we jumped on it. I think it was in between some of the lockdowns, and that was really wonderful, just to be able to see each other. Because I think moving forward, what we, have said that we would like would be, more alumni events, more opportunities to get together. That the events that were organized were wonderful, but even going into the future and in Emerald 3.0, I suppose, that we would bring more of our skills to the table within our groups and share, in presentation format what time management or accounting or whatever it is. Everybody in the group has a different skill to bring to the table, and a little bit of homework from month to month. Not too much, but just a little bit, so that you can share and help even further. And I thought that was a really wonderful idea. But the general consensus being we'd love to see each other. The success within the group was phenomenal. Just basically people who grew their professional skill sets, who grew in leadership within their businesses, and who got promoted. We had loads of promotions, and we even had promotions to directorship level, realization of a values mismatch, and then walking away from a company at that level, then stepping into new jobs which were totally in line with values and perfect for the individuals at hand. Lots of recognition because of the recognition that we had for ourselves. And then we were able to bring that forward into the workplaces and really, be confident in who we were, because we were getting an objective opinion from an amazing group of women. I'm very, very grateful to have been the chair for the Emerald B group. And thank you, ladies, for showing up every month and for contributing so much to the group.
Thank you, Ash. That was wonderful. So well presented. Thank you. Beautiful, beautifully said. Over to Group C, which will be explained and led by Steph.
Great, thanks, Mairead, and good evening, everyone. I think really the theme of this evening is support, and this really emulated in our Emerald Group C during the course of the past 12 months. Really, it was a theme that enabled the group to be confident and to be determined and tenacious throughout the year to, I guess, learn from each other and achieve those goals, and also, achieve those wins during the period. It was really like the board of directors, as we alluded to earlier, coming together and to challenge each other and provide independent, solid advice in an environment where there's no strings attached. And really, I think at the end of coming to the end of this journey, really empowered all of the ladies that were part of Emerald Group C. Without actually having met each other face to face, I'd just like to introduce everyone from Emerald Group C this evening. I'd like to start with Linda Sharkey, who asked that amazing closing questions of Gabrielle earlier. And Linda is from Cushman and Wakefield, and incredibly, probably the hardest working lady I've ever met in my entire life. And I think really, Emerald brought a view to Linda to, tweak that really hard-working ethic. You'll never change it, but tweak it and be more present. And Linda did that through, meditation, and also recognizing that the ethos of Emerald and setting goals is so helpful, to achieve what you wanted to do going forward. Secondly, I'd like to introduce Katrina Ledgewood, who's one of just had a little baby, Connell, recently, and she really was a wonderful contributor to the group, and I really wish her well bringing up a baby abroad. Thirdly, Andrea Dalton Doran. I'm so admirable of Andrea. She's a strong woman that has come, and very successful, and has come to Australia during a difficult time, really approaching COVID. So has been, learning the Australian life during I guess a predominantly lockdown environment, which has been really incredibly challenging. But Andrea is a wonderful person, and I think the group brought the importance of just focusing on what you can control rather than what you can't control, and I think we've all learned from that during this very difficult time. Also call out to Tara Lawler, who's the general manager of IDS Security, incredibly strong woman, the general manager and founder of the IDS Security, a security services firm. And really Tara brought to the group, an incredible focus of being in the present and being now. Really, she advised us all to read the book, The Power of Now. And that really, it allows you to focus on what you can change now and not focus on the small things. And particularly being a business owner, that can be very difficult because you can get very wound up in your business. But really, Tara recognizes that focused on the big ticket items, and via the advice of Linda also in the group, started 2 further brands as sub brands to her business. So amazing achievement. And finally, I'd like to just call out to my co-chair, Chris Malockley. We really call Chris the angel of the group. She's just been unbelievable, supporting Irish people, going back to Ireland and returning from Ireland to Australia during this very difficult time. And as she says herself, I'm not only a travel agent, being the travel agent of Emerald Travel, but she is a professional and serves a higher purpose of actually helping others, and helping others being Irish people in Australia. So thank you, Chris, for that. Overall, just in summary, anyone thinking about joining Emerald for the 3.0, as Aisling said, please do. It's an amazing experience. This is my 2nd time around. I definitely will do it again. And as I said, it's your board of directors. The more mentors that you'll have, the more successful you will be in life. So sign up, get involved, and you'll make lifelong friends. So thank you, Mairead. Back to you.
Beautiful, Steph. Thank you. So beautiful. Well done. You guys are smashing it. Well done, Ree. It's fabulous to hear. And it's great to sit back and just really take it in. The people that are here, the level of expertise and the achievements and the levels that you guys are at, but also the humanness of it all. We're coming back to the essentials and fundamentals of life. I feel like that's what's carried us through this 12 months, which is also beautiful to see, because it's not a big fix. It's not like really hard things and dynamic things that we needed a lot of this year. It was like the simple things to come back into now and the present moment, and just breathing, which is awesome. The grand finale, Group D. Clara, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mairead. I'm Clara McCormack, Chair of Emerald Group D. Was so fortunate to have Mairead as co-chair. So grateful, fortunate. Mairead has been amazing. We've mentioned support so many times this evening. For me particularly though, a couple of rough months late in pregnancy during the year, Mairead just completely stepped up, absolutely helped out so much. So yeah, thank you so much. Also in our group, so Emma McGuire, Aisling Kilgannon, Niamh Byrne, Cara Briscoe, Catherine Troy and Orla Kennedy, based across Melbourne, Sydney and Perth. And I think the thing that really stood out for me with our group was that we kind of share the responsibility of all our mastermind meetings. So we kind of made sure to delegate, and everyone really stepped up, which was yeah, really helpful for both myself and Mairead. But yeah, just to kind of get everyone really involved. And reflecting for this evening, I thought about this first group event, and I had this overwhelming sense of excitement having been involved in Emerald 1.0. Bit different being on Zoom. So arriving into that first mastermind meeting, I was pretty nervous because it is difficult to create that or build that rapport when on Zoom. I know we're all used to it in this way of working, but it still was that sense of nervousness. And I have to just call out Mairead and the incredible work that you put into. I'm not sure if everyone really, I know we talked about it, but it was just so much work put into that structure, which really helped, I think, in getting the rapport built and actually getting really productive meetings happen. And that's, yeah, just straight after that first one, it just was amazing to jump online every month, and that rapport was there, as you say, friends, yeah, built for forever, hopefully. We gathered and collated lots of highlights from our group, and I have to say this is really heartwarming to read. Mairead's already alluded to this earlier, but it was really heartwarming, so I hope you'll indulge me, and I do have to read this out because there was a lot of highlights in our group. So I hope you'll bear with me while I read out some of our highlights from the past year. So we had a wedding, we had someone who found true love, we had 2 babies born and 1 more is on the way. We had 4 promotions, purchased a commercial property, walked away from a big opportunity that no longer aligned. So based on what Ash is saying in your group as well, really similar. Gained 10 kilos and accepted that it's okay and normal. Love that one. A directorship achieved, interviewed Adam Goods, coached Melbourne Shamrocks Camogie team to win the league and championship, presented to senior management, a new business created and designed to launch in early 2022, designed a wine country weekender and investment property for my family and managed the project. One new business for my company based on my ability and experience. The work is in an area that my department traditionally hasn't been active. And I'm quoting some of these here, by the way. Created women in operations / facility management to connect women in a male-dominated sector. Raised over $5,000 for mental health charities in Ireland and Australia. Doubled membership base of my business. Created a meal train initiative to ensure new mums or mums in need got home cooked meals to their door and felt the support of their community. Business income quadrupled in the last 12 months. Invited to be part of senior management discussion on the engagement and employment of women within the company and the company's future direction with this at the fore. Got back to meditating whenever possible. And we had so many goals that were completed. We had the goals set at the outset, and then we kind of revisited when we needed a bit of an injection of motivation throughout the year, during the year. Some more general things, learnings. So honed in on things I loved doing, helping, serving, connecting with others, as well as growing my global network of friends, confidants, mentors, and peers. Learning to improve my work-life balance. Learn to jump into things a little quicker, speak up a little sooner rather than think through every detail. Learn to not put bosses on a pedestal, to call out their bad behavior, stand up for myself and to present to senior management. Supported each other through hard times. Learn to set goals. Love this one, learned more self-compassion and less comparison. Met a fantastic group of ladies. I think the overarching one is just had a highly trusted group of people who showed so much genuine care for each other throughout the year, and just the importance of having that trusted group to help work through all sorts of issues that we've all faced this year. So that was our group.
Well done. Oh, wow. Yeah, it was incredible. I couldn't believe it when I was reading through, and I'm just like, wow. And I'm sure if we were to hone in and get lists of everybody's 12 months, it's just like, and as well, there's also times where we've probably set goals and haven't achieved them. But it's like trying to come back to that self-compassion piece and be like, but we are in a pandemic and we've never lived in this kind of time before. And, sometimes we set goals and don't achieve them. That's just the nature of life, right? So that was absolutely beautiful. Well done, everybody. Like a massive hats off to all the achievements across the board. You have been this is way better than I ever expected, to be honest. It's funny as you go through the year, you don't really know. We're talking and we're meeting up as a group of chairs and co-chairs, and I'm thinking, how's everyone going? But it's when you come to the end of the 12 months and you reflect that you realize, wow, this is really strong and this is really powerful. And the transition from meeting in person to going online, again, one of those things that we're like, oh, is it going to work? I'm not really sure. But this just shows that there is value in this. Obviously we'd love to be in real life. And I think that I'm going to touch on something about that in a second. It's something that we definitely will, hopefully at one point we will get a chance to do. But I also think it's wonderful that we now have this beautiful connection with a group in Ireland as well. So Terry kicked off a group earlier this year. It's funny when we're in the green room beforehand and Terry's just saying, she's like, I'm just back from holidays. We're like, don't ever talk about holidays. But we love it, Terry. It's so wonderful and it's so hopeful for us here. But it's so great to have you here and to be that representation of the Irish group. It's great. So if there's anything you want to share, I'd love to hear from you.
Sure. Thanks, Mairead. I'm absolutely bowled over by what I've heard, and really I guess the challenge for me, because we have a number of sessions left in the Irish programme, is to really sort of capture that enthusiasm, etc. I think we've done a pretty good job so far under difficult circumstances. We started with, I think, about 7 ladies in the group. One lady just kind of dropped off. We really didn't see her again, but everybody else, the commitment and the involvement and the enthusiasm has been incredible. We've had horrendous lockdown while you guys were a little bit freer. It's just kind of flipped on its head now, and I hate what you guys are all going through. We had it was just absolutely horrendous, but Each of our participants turned up every week. We've had a lot of changes. We've had a lot of job changes and promotions and people changing companies, etc. We took a break for July and August, mainly because a little bit of wriggle room freedom, I won't say those words too loud, appeared. So people really weren't in a position to participate. So our next session for the autumn is on the 16th of September. And I am actually hoping that we will try and do some in-person events. People are around the country, they're not all in Dublin, but I kind of think there is an opportunity for even in smaller groups to actually meet up. And I think we would love that. It has been a real privilege to be chairing with this first across the world interaction on Zoom, and made possible by Zoom. I just think that has given a shot of international dimension and makes Australia closer, makes Ireland closer to you guys. So I just think that is absolutely awesome. And for the next iteration of Emerald programme, that really is a key selling point. So an absolute privilege to be involved. Loved hearing absolutely everything that the various chairs spoke of this evening. Well done, absolutely fantastic.
Thank you, Terry. That was perfect. Really, really great. So I might just run through like a couple of the one-liners that I've read from some of the feedback that we've got. Lisa, if I could just have a little look at that slide. Of things that people have said, because I found it really heartwarming and also just really like true. So anyone who hasn't been part of Emerald before or is thinking about re-enrolling for 2.0, like there's a lot of us, and we're all going to get together in a second to answer any questions. So have a think about any questions you want to ask when it comes to either the Emerald programme or just generally supporting women during this time that we can discuss as a group. But I just wanted to touch on these little, I thought this was just beautifully put. The Emerald ladies were my constant support, friends, laugh, encouragement, source of ideas and accountability partners. Mastermind meetings were the one time of the month that was truly and purely mine, and I felt freedom to speak and ask and to give. I thoroughly enjoyed the webinars and the speakers. I enjoyed the programme as I wanted to develop a suitable progression plan that would suit my family situation and my personal ambition. The biggest acceptance that I've taken from this year, I can have a flexible career path and still be successful. Success isn't just professional, it's family, happiness and health. And I think that just sums up everything that we're about. Before we open up the floor to some questions, and feel free to pop them in the chat box there, anything you want us to talk about. There's something I want to just touch on, and it comes back to the original conversation I ever had with Barry and Lisa and Catherine when I kind of was like, let's see what we can do with this Emerald programme. Because the Emerald programme personally for me had a massive impact. The first ever chamber event that I went to was, for want of better words, but it's just the reality, a sea of men in suits from the front door to the back. And this is a number of years ago now. So, but as I walked in with my brother, thankfully, who I pulled along to come to the event, I felt super uncomfortable. I felt so vulnerable. I was like, oh God, where am I going to go? And how can I hide? How long can I spend in the toilet before I have to leave? But at the back of the room, I found this beautiful group of women, and I met Catherine. I remember that night really well, Catherine Grogan, who some of you guys might know. And Catherine was like, come in here and we'll show. And there was like this corner where the women were. And I was like, oh my God, this is so good. And they talked about the Emerald programme, and I joined the Emerald programme, and then I met the most lifelong friends. I cannot tell you the group of people that I met in my first round and again in my second round have become my absolute sisters, my family away from home. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because, yes, this is the kind of grand finale of this group, but it doesn't have to be the grand finale of anything. My vision for this Emerald 2.0 was that we change what's seen within the chamber by having more visibility of women. And that means that we have to show up. We have to go to the events, and we have to put ourselves out there more and more and more and use our voice to be able to have an opinion and participate. And I have to say, I'm so proud to see so many of you involved in kindred networks and infiltrating into the chamber in different ways. But I think we really need to keep this momentum up. So once the doors open, when we can get back together, or whenever events are happening virtually, I think it's really important that we collectively nearly it's like a suggestion from me that we show up and we're seen and we put our hands up for things. Like, I didn't know how the chamber ran until I got involved more, and I worked closely with Barry and Lisa. And the other thing that I didn't realize is Barry, Lisa and Catherine are it. Like, there's not like a team behind the team that like do everything else. They do everything. And I'm like, oh, you organize all of these events and all of these groups, and they need people. And I think that after listening to the array of wins and successes and the caliber of women that we have in this chamber, we just need to put our hands up a bit more and get involved if we can. Okay. So I just wanted to say that because I feel like there's a lot of power in what we've created so far. The only other little thing I want to do before we have questions is I also want to acknowledge the men that are on this call. And I know, no, not Ronan. Oh my God, I can't remember the president's name. David earlier was kind of saying, oh, it's funny, it's a women in leadership program and it's two guys talking. But actually, that's something that's so powerful. And I have only ever felt, as a person coming forward at the senior leadership level within the chamber, that Barry and David absolutely support what we're doing here, and seeing them here and showing up. And also for John that's here, and I'm not sure if there's any other men here, but that's what we need, is men to come along and support women during this journey. So I'm just really grateful that you're here. Ronan's here too, and Ronan supporting and sponsoring a massive part of this amazing program. So thank you as well, Ronan. Like, sorry, that was actually a big part of what I wanted to say. So that's really, really important as well. Okay, so without further ado, all of my chairs and co-chairs, you're going to have to just come and join me. Well, I might open it up by talking about, a lot of people here have been through Emerald program once, but what would you say to someone who's considering doing it a second time? Is it beneficial, and why? Who wants to go?
I'll go.
Rachel.
Yes, I would say it's definitely beneficial. I have been through, this is my second round of Emerald. The first one was amazing. Just even after the first year, we kept in touch and still catch up when we can. I found the Zoom transition has been really fantastic as well. Obviously, when we get the opportunities to meet up in person, that's a lot of fun to have breakfasts and lunch if we can, and dinners and drinks. But having the Zoom each month has been amazing, just to get to know everybody. And it's just a support network. It's your sounding board. It's people who, they don't know you, they get to know you, but they'll give you solid advice, and honest advice as well. And they'll be your supporter and your cheerleader for whatever you want to do. And I found that with both groups that I've been through. So yeah, it's just that your own little network to build yourself is something that I have really enjoyed from being in the Emerald groups.
Rachel, thank you. Does anyone got anything they want to add?
I'll just quickly add, I was part of Horizons a number of years ago, and I did one-to-one mentoring to the chamber. So it's come my fourth round of having this sort of support. And I just think you don't ever stop needing help or advice or whatnot. And I think the idea of everyone opting into it, it's that group that's there and everyone's kind of in it together. So I don't ever think, that you never stop needing that. That's what I'd add, that I've got something that's very different each of the group, because it's different humans in each group, but absolutely get something out of it every time. I certainly have anyway.
Yeah, fantastic. Maybe I'll just add another question and then I'll open up to a few more of the chairs. Transitioning from being a member to being a chair or co-chair, how has that helped you? And what was the experience of that? I'm really good at awkward silences.
I am. Well, I kind of feel I always step up in the chamber, so it's hard keeping me quiet sometimes, Barry, isn't it? So it was natural for me to step into a chair, and I'm really glad that I did. I don't know how good a chair I was now, but I did it anyway. I think it was more supported by the group of women that I had with me, and they were amazing. And you know, like I said, my co-chair and just the support, because we did pass it around, so it wasn't a big deal, you know. But I suppose second to Clara's point, for me, my life like has been online for the past 2 years. So we're building rapport online. Is something I teach. You know, it's part of what we just like. There's no other choice in the matter, right? So it's a really good, for those who don't have to do it that much, it's a really great opportunity to do that and to step up in your leadership skills, and to be around amazing women. Like we don't always, like, quite often we might have, our friends might not be ambitious. If you're in the room today, you're here because you are ambitious, because you want more, that you don't want to settle, that you're not just wanting to live a life of mediocrity. Like if you did, you wouldn't be here. And that's the thing. So you know that the women who put themselves forward for the Emerald program want more. They're striving to be better, to live better lives, to achieve more. And so the people surrounding you in the room all want like success for each other, and you, like, it's very rare that you can find a team of cheerleaders from all different industries and different perspectives and walks of life that can celebrate you and your success in the same way.
Fantastic. Anyone want to add anything? How does it help being a chair? What was your experience?
I think I would give the advice to anyone considering putting their hand up not to be daunted by it, because, you know, Anne was a great support for me, but in every group, you know, you have professional women there, you know, you're not by yourself. The group leads itself because everyone is very driven and ambitious in the group. They've all got their goals, so just don't feel daunted. I know probably I felt a little bit scared at the start, to be honest, but I had a great group, you know, and everyone was great. Like it's a great growth opportunity for anyone.
Yeah, fantastic. So good. Okay, because we don't really have too many questions, I have a different bit of an idea. So what I want you guys to do is just write in the chat box, but don't press enter. Just write in the chat box one word of how you feel coming to the end of this 12 months after being a part of this Emerald program. A word or two. Write in the chat box, don't press enter. How do you feel coming to the end of this? I'm hoping these words are going to be positive. Don't write anything that's not positive. Okay, everyone's written in their words? Yeah, okay, press enter. We can just have a little look. Fulfilled, advanced, grateful, proud, revitalized, educated. Sad it's ending. Well, Rachel, next year, 3.0. Proud, uplifted, success at home. Oh, that's beautiful, Andrea. What more could we want than to create a home for people during this time, hey? Empowered, connected, invigorated, connected, empowered, proud. Well done. Well done, everybody. I have to pause and acknowledge this person for their relentless dedication to this program, to the detail, to investing in wanting to make it exceptional. Miss Lisa, you are unreal. Like, through it all, and you haven't had the easiest time at times this last while, you've shown up, you've been devoted, you've been committed, and you've gone the extra yard to make it beautiful, because I really wanted it like that. And we both did. We're like, let's make this pretty and lovely and feminine and real for us. So I just want to take an absolute moment of acknowledgement. I think that sometimes people don't know how hard you work behind the scenes for everything that's being created, the welcome packs and all the work that went on. From the moment that this idea came to fruition, you've only been optimistic and positive and solution focused. So thank you from all of us. It's really, it wouldn't have been possible without you.
Thanks, everyone. I'm glad you received and appreciated all the work. I enjoyed doing it. It was great to just see the end result and to be here 12 months down the track. We had all that buzz last year at our forum, and I think we did well. I think we hit some goals and achieved probably more than we expected we would in a virtual format. But yeah, I'm very proud. So I'm sure all you ladies are, and hope to see some of you next year returning. I'll pop the details up now, actually.
Yes, place the details there for a minute before I share this final quote. I had all sorts of things that I was thinking. I was like, will I do a blessing? Or like, then I felt like, oh, that's way too Irish and like so atypical. So I found this quote and I thought it was better. So anybody who would like to, before I move on, anyone who would like to apply, take your phone and do the QR code right now so you can have the details, which is going to be the expression of interest for 2022. You can also apply through the same link, QR code, to be a chair and put expression of interest into that. So I'll just give you a second to do that. But this is a really simple quote that I thought was great and so fitting for our wonderful group. It said, I want every little girl who's told she's bossy to be told instead she has adequate leadership skills. There you go. I think it's true. We need to be vocal and seen, as Gabby said. So on that note, well done, everybody. An absolute success. I can't wait till we can all catch up and continue this conversation and be seen. Well done. You're amazing. Yes. You're welcome. Okay, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.